everybody, welcome to this beautiful Wednesday. My name is Tom Nash. Let's get straight to the point. There's a lot to cover in this video. Tesla has plans for an $800 million factory investment. The European Central Bank is actually at odds with Jerome Powell and the Fed. We have a lot to talk about. Michael Burry against the Fed. We have some issues with Credit Suisse you absolutely have to hear about. Rivian is actually terminating 2 key employees. Binance is apparently at risk of collapse according to Forbes. And we have some news out of Citi who's telling you to not hoard cash. A lot to cover in this video. Let's get straight into it. So first of all, let's talk about the first subject. Tesla actually has plans for an $800 million investment in expanding the Texas facility. I think it's beautiful. While everybody's talking about Tesla losing demand, ask yourself this question. If you run a business and you're facing a demand problem, you just literally can't sell enough cars, are you investing $800 million in expanding your production capacity? I don't think so. In fact, I think it's kind of hilarious when Tesla is investing in expanding its production facilities by $800 million, while the rest of these clowns like GM and Ford are investing in Super Bowl ads for cars they can't even make. 36 lyrics sold in Q3 of 2022. Come on, guys, get your stuff together. Let's talk about Michael Burry versus the Fed, another very interesting topic. So Michael Burry tweeted a few days ago basically saying, hey, guys, the Fed is going to overshoot it. Basically, we're going negative inflation this year. In the second half of the year, the Fed is going to freak out, basically saying, oh my God, what have we done? We've raised interest way too much. They're going to start stimulating again, which is going to send the stock market into a crazy rally and bring back inflation stronger than ever. Now, in fact, if you look at the bond market right now and you look at the way the stock market is behaving, a lot of people are agreeing with Michael Burry. There's a big part of the investment community who's betting on that specific scenario, while in fact the Fed and Jerome Powell are very clear they're not going to do that. In fact, Jerome Powell spoke yesterday and he literally said, hey, we're not backing off. We're going to go through with this all the way through 2023 and possibly 2024. Don't expect any rate cuts at all. So the question is, I think, whether Michael Burry is right or Jerome Powell is actually going to keep his word is actually very simple. It's a factual question. So the way we find out who was right about this is what happens with inflation. When CPI data comes out in December and in January and in February, we're going to find out which direction this is heading. You know, when you're peeing against the wind, you find out pretty quickly that your feet are wet. So we'll see. If we are headed to negative inflation, we should see impacts of that actually start to accumulate in January and February of this year as well. So we're going to find out who was right about it, because I can tell you one thing, that if inflation goes negative, that's not a healthy market. That's not a healthy economy. They're going to have to do something. And that something might actually be exactly what Michael Burry is saying. But again, nobody will know whether Michael Burry is right or the Fed is right. But I'm not going to bet against the Fed. I think playing a game of chicken against the central bank that has literally nothing to lose and I have to lose all my money, it's not a smart chicken game I want to play. In fact, I think there's a chicken smart game anywhere except for maybe Chicken Genius, but that's a whole different video. Now, let's talk about the second topic. So, the European Central Bank actually had the audacity to respond to what Jerome Powell said yesterday in his very nothing burger speech. So, yesterday, actually, I don't know if you noticed this, but Jerome Powell actually spoke yesterday. Nobody covered this because this was pretty much a nothing burger, 5 minutes of a plain vanilla speech that made people fall asleep literally. But the only thing he said of importance in that speech that we hadn't heard like 1,000 times before is the fact that the job of the central bank in America is not to deal with any climate change issues. That's the legislator's job, not the job of the central bank, which I 100% agree with. And somehow the European Central Bank has the audacity to come out and respond and call Jerome Powell a clown, whatever, right? So they come out. 2 board members from the ECB, the European Central Bank, came out and said, no, this is literally what the job of the central bank in Europe to do, is to deal with climate change. Now, look, you European folks, you need to understand what the job is. You have one job, literally. Price stability, economic sustainability. You have nothing to do with climate control. The fact is, this is exactly what's wrong with Europe. Too many legislators not doing their job, and too many bureaucrats like the board members of the ECB thinking it's their job to deal with climate policy. Jesus Christ, just do your job, man. Look at inflation in Europe right now. Focus on inflation. Who cares right now about climate change? Come on, this whole virtue signaling in Europe has gone out of control. I can't believe we actually heard this. Now, Binance, according to Forbes, is at risk of basically going under, it seems, at least allegedly, according to the Forbes article. So, Forbes article just came out saying that Binance lost about $12 billion in AUM in under 60 days, which means that people pulled out $12 billion or they lost value, whatever may happen. But at the end of the day, it's $12 billion less in the bank. Now, I don't know exactly if it's actually a risk for Binance or not, but that's the whole problem. The fact is, nobody knows. What do we really know about Binance? I mean, who the frick regulates Binance? Who gets to see their books? Who gets to regulate them and supervise them? We know nothing about Binance. I know just as much about Binance about any regulator in the world. They're not regulated anywhere? What's going on? So I think this whole thing with Binance, it's actually a very interesting test case, so to speak. So Forbes are saying, hey, Binance is at risk. Now, we know what CZ is going to do. He's going to come out for like 57 interviews and he's going to explain this is FUD and everything is okay. Now, I don't know if Forbes are right or CZ is right, but that's the problem. Nobody knows. We need a little bit more transparency with now the monopoly, de facto, with FTX basically dying in a ditch somewhere. We need some transparency about Binance because most of the market right now is sitting on Binance. So can we please get some more transparency so we can find out if you guys are really in trouble or not? With all due respect to CZ and the crew, I mean, you guys sending me 57 emails saying everything is okay is just not enough. We need to have like a supervisor, a regulator looking at your books. I don't want cryptocurrency regulated. I don't want Bitcoin regulated. That's the whole point. But I want the exchange regulated. How about that? Let's start with that. Now, Rivian is actually announcing that 2 key employees are leaving, and these are important employees. The head of the global supply chain is leaving, and the vice president responsible for bodywork is leaving. Look, they have 15,000 employees. 2 employees leaving is absolutely not a huge deal. At the end of the day, look, Rivian is kind of a victim of their own hype. It's a terrific company. They have a terrific truck. If you actually had any experience with the Rivian truck, it's unbelievably fun to drive and to camp with. It's just beautiful artwork. So Rivian has a great product. They have a great team. They have a great R&D department. And they're sitting right now with a product in the pickup truck category, which is something that Tesla doesn't have. So Rivian is really sitting tight in the best category in the U.S. auto market, the trucks, the category that's been dominated by the F-150 for as much as I can remember. So good for them. But that's the problem. The stock price have gone so much, the hype has taken over this company so much that people fail to forget that this is a startup. This is a startup with a lot of promise, and I hope it succeeds because I hope we have multiple EV success stories in the market, not just Tesla. I'm not one of them Tesla boys who just say, hey, if it's not Tesla, then, I hate you. I definitely think some EV creators are absolute jokes. Lucid, for example, I don't have any faith in my own personal opinion. But Rivian is definitely a producer I absolutely want to succeed. And I think they can if they do the right choices. But at this point, there's just so much hype under the stock. People need to stop talking about it, let these guys work, and let's see if they can actually scale. Hopefully they can. Moving on to Credit Suisse. So Credit Suisse, get this. They're discussing about halving their bonuses for the year. So basically, they want to just give out 1 billion of bonuses this year instead of 2 billion. Why? Well, that's because the bank lost literally $7 billion this year. Probably one of the worst years in its history. Now, as this happened, get this, 17% of their employees are going home. They're terminating 17% of their workforce. Literally 1/5 of Credit Suisse is going home because they lost $7 billion. But get this, the executives are not paying the price. The executives are not going home. They're getting just half of their bonus. Now, tell me, I'm just in the wrong profession. I kid you not. I'm in the wrong profession. I'm literally in the wrong profession. Tell me which job in the world, except Jerome Powell, which job in the world you can screw up tremendously, stupendously, do a horrible job, the worst ever, and still keep your job and get a bonus. Again, except John Powell, he did it already once, but except John Powell, Credit Suisse seems to be the only place when you can screw up so bad, put the bank in trouble, get 17% of people to go home and get without a salary. People have to feed their kids and put their wives in school, whatever they have to do it. I mean, come on. There's no accountability. Halving the bonuses. How about you? Mother lovers take 0 bonuses. You just screwed the pooch. You still lost $7 billion. Not to mention the fact that the AUM for the assets under management for Credit Suisse went down from $740 billion to 650. Yeah, 650 if my math is correct. And of course, it might be not. But I mean, $90 billion of AUM lost. So $90 billion of rich mother lovers' money was withdrawn from Credit Suisse. They lost $7 billion. And they're firing 17% of their employees, but the bonuses, they're only cutting them by half. God forbid they don't get their bonuses. The people with the boats and the house in the Hamptons. Come on. Now, I do want to talk about something else. Double Line Capital CEO, Jeremy Gundlach, is saying that he tremendously favors non-U.S. stock over U.S. stock. Now, to me, that's blasphemous because I honestly don't know where he's taking his data from. Look at VT, which is the global index, versus the S&P 500. Over the past 5 years, VT did 15%. The S&P 500 did 40%. Now, look at a 10-year stretch. The VT did 80%, which is nice in 10 years. The S&P 500 did 170%. You see where I'm going with this? Now, look, the U.S. economy, which is the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 is the U.S. economy. You can't actually differentiate between the two. The U.S. economy is so strong, it's so powerful, it's so dominant that even the Fed can't screw it up. Imagine that. Even Jerome Powell could not destroy the U.S. economy. In that debate, I much rather go with Warren Buffett, who says that you should only bet on the U.S. economy versus everything else, versus Jeremy Gundlach. With all due respect to Mr. Gundlach, I'm going with Mr. Buffett and I'm putting my money in the S&P 500, but that's just me. Who knows? You might have different consideration. Now, one little thing before we go. Citi, according to a CNBC article, and CNBC Pro actually is behind the paywall, but I actually read it because I'm not a cheap mother lover. They're saying, stop hoarding cash. Hoarding cash is a horrible mistake. Now, let me tell you something. You might not get protection from inflation with hoarding cash, but guess what? Nobody ever lost their house and their life by hoarding cash. Nobody went broke by hoarding cash. A lot of people who went broke trying to hedge against inflation in a bad market. So just remember that before you read this sort of advice from CNBC and other very respected media outlets. Quick word before we go. We had the first 1,000 people sign up for Stock MVP. It's my own platform for stock research, stock-mvp.com. 1,000 people signed up for the Founders Plan, which is $99 per year for life. 34 of them asked for a refund. That's okay. We gave them a full refund, no questions asked. But that means there's 34 spots left. Now, once they're gone, they're gone. The link is going to be below. The first 34 people who sign up get the annual 99 Founders Plan. Go get it right now if you want to try it out. 14 days, no questions asked, refund. And if there's any refunds within that 34, we're going to give it to you again. But unless that happens, there's not going to be any more spots. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow. That's the power of love. Shout out to Huey Lewis in the news.